we went to the field and asked beekeepers and canola producers to tell their stories on film in their own words. We wanted to learn how important they are to each other, as well as how farmers and beekeepers work together to prevent bee losses while growing healthy crops and harvesting the sweet nectar of honey. While talking to canola growers and honey producers, we learned that canola is as good for bees as bees are for canola. In fact, 70 to 80% of the honey produced in Canada comes from canola, and having honeybees adds yield to the canola fields.
My name is Shelley Hoover, and I work for Alberta Agriculture and Rural Development, and I'm an apiculture research scientist. So my background is in entomology and animal behavior, and in particular I study bees, and I have studied aspects of their nutrition, their physiology, their gene expression, and also how bees interact with plants and the environment in terms of pollination.
My name's Al Robb. My friends call me Relic. They're not really good friends, but they're there. We're going to talk about bees and the beekeeper and how to keep a healthy hive healthy.
I'm Adam Enright, and I have a grain farm out southeast of Camrose. Well, from the farm, we're about 3 miles from some beekeepers, and we actually have a quarter section right at their place, so they have bees on there pretty well every year.
I'm Warren Seklich. I farm 4,000 acres with my dad. We farm wheat, canola, peas. We have 65 cattle, and we have about 500 acres of hay and pasture as well.
I'm Mark Parody. I'm a beekeeper in the Rycroft area also. We run 2,000 hives. We've been doing beekeeping as a family for over 8 generations, and we also pollinate on the blueberries and cranberry fields in the southern BC.
I'm Jeff Wilson, Provincial Specialist Apiculture with the Ministry of Agriculture in Saskatchewan.
My name is Landon Strunks, and I've worked with Woodhawk Farms for probably close to 10 years. I worked mostly with Kelvin with the leafcutter bees, and slowly moving over into the honeybees. We've been in the honeybee business for about 5 years, I guess 6 now, and I look after most of the management responsibilities to do with the honeybees. So,
I would say alfalfa, clover, and canola are good nectar and pollen sources for bees.
Benefits of canola for beekeepers is obviously it yields a lot of honey, and it's good quality honey. Bees get mostly nectar and pollen, which the nectar turns into honey, and the pollen is like the bees' nutrients. Canola has very distinct yellow pollen, so bees like it.
The yellow that you see in the frame here is canola pollen.
The pollen is a pretty good pollen for the bees to consume. It's got a good amino acid complex to allow the bees to reproduce and be fairly healthy.
Canola, it's a 30-day bloom period usually, and I would say it's the bulk of what Alberta beekeepers are relying on for the main honey production.
A nice field like this, blooming during the day, it's can't ask for better for a bee, you know.
Canola is the main flowering crop in this area. Other than canola, we have small bits of alfalfa and small bits of clover, but predominantly most of our honey comes out of canola.
Likely between 60 or 70% of the honey extracted in the province would be from canola. It is the main crop for honey production.
It makes a very light honey. It ranges anywhere from 5 millimeters to 15 millimeters in darkness, which is very, very light. Most honeys in the world are in their 50s, 50 millimeters, so we do a product that's wanted around the world for blending to a lighter color.
The benefits for farmers are that it helps with the yields for pollinating, which results in better yields, and it goes into potting a lot quicker after it's been pollinated really well, which reduces flower time, and it's kind of a win-win situation.
And with regards to leafcutters, I mean, with the onset of the canola seed industry in southern Alberta, I mean, it's developed a whole new business and industry for us as leafcutter pollinators as well. It's been a a really good benefit for the leafcutter industry for sure.
All the canola we grow is all for seed production, so it needs the pollination on there, so it's a necessity for the bees, so we have to have them.
Well, and I think the majority of the seed growers that are growing hybrid seed production understand the importance of the pollinators to getting a good seed crop. So more and more of them are really understanding the importance of applying even their fungicides and insecticides, you know, in the right times of day, especially like roughly after 8 o'clock at night and stuff.
Well, I think it's important to help the beekeepers out. Canola is great for the bees, and it's also a benefit to the canola crop to have the bees around to pollinate it. So it kind of works both ways. It helps both parties out. So
basically, if a bee can have good pollen and nectar sources, they do a pretty good job of taking care of themselves, as long as we take care of the mites and the pest and disease issues as well. You know, it all starts back in March for us. We need good wintering success. And this year is a good example. You know, the first week of March, we came out of winter with less than 10% winter losses. Things look really good. Bees look good. Things were quite nice in late February here in central Alberta. And the weather went to pot for 6 weeks. And our bees went downhill so fast, I've never seen it before. And over those 6 weeks, we lost another 20% of our bees. Wintering's definitely one of our biggest challenges as a Canadian beekeeper, and especially a beekeeper in the prairies. After production in the fall, we have a very short window to get treatments on. The treatments are temperature dependent, and to get them fed. In the spring and fall, we feed liquid sugar. It has to be flying conditions for the bees to take it. So we have a 6 to 8 week window to get all the feed and treatments in. And then, you know, we have to wrap them up in insulated tarps and leave them outdoors for the winter. And, you know, the treatments include a treatment for the mites that we've all heard about in the media, you know, the last 5 years, and mites being resistant to treatments. And those mites lead to viruses. It all starts with, you know, good treatments going into the wintering success. It all kind of flows into each other. So winter and mite treatments are the two biggest issues that we have to deal with right now, I believe.
This particular yard of bees is destined for BC. We overwinter about half of our colonies in British Columbia, the Kelowna area, and mainly because of the warmer climate over the winter, the shorter duration of winter. We expect a total mortality rate of about 30%. That includes hives that we've culled in the fall, hives that die over the winter, and hives that just don't make it in the spring. The winter in BC is much milder and much shorter in duration than what the winter in Manitoba is. The bees generally winter better in British Columbia just because the winter is a lot shorter than here.
There's 3 major pests, 3 to 4 major pests or diseases affecting honeybees in the province right now. First 2 are mites, varroa mite and tracheal mites, and every year we have to treat for these mites to keep these diseases under control. Without appropriate treatments, colonies would effectively die within a year or 2.
In Canada, one of the largest hurdles bees face is our long winters, and that's not something that's ever going to go away. The longer and colder the winter, the more bees will have die.
The population of the hive changes throughout the year. The max population in the hive is obviously during the middle of summer, where there could say be 50,000 plus bees per hive. And that would be going into winter also, but then during the winter that number dwindles down, so you may only have 10,000 left by the 1st of April.
If you're not controlling your foul brood and your mites, you're going to lose bees. The foul brood will totally wipe a hive out in 1 year, and the mites, the worst thing about mites is when they come in the fall, they stay with the bees. As long as the bees are warm, the mites are there, and they'll totally destroy your hives.
You know, it's kind of a win-win situation for both of us out here. I think we're both very respectful of what the other one does for a living, and through working together and having a good communication process out there, it's been good for everybody involved for over 30 years here.
And alfalfa seed, there's no seed treatment per se on the alfalfa seed, but canola there is, but we haven't seen any negative effects on the bee end or what I can see.
When possible, we tend to spray prior to flowering. I mean, there's always some chemical applications that need to be done when in flower, but if you can get applications done prior to flowering, then obviously that's better because the bees won't be foraging on that field at that time. So.
A good time for spraying is after 8 p.m. You know, the bees are minimized on the flowers. They're not as flying as much when they're in their homes. And just making sure that you do lots of checks, that you're spraying for the right pests and using the right pesticides. And
the most important thing we do is you spend lots of time scouting. You're in the field lots looking for insects, looking for pests. And then we really are really conservative on spraying. We tend to not spray insecticides all that much. So it starts right there with your scouting and your your economic thresholds and stuff. And if you do have to go in, like on the odd time, we do have to go in and say spray Lagus when canola is still flowering. We try to give the beekeeper quite a bit of notice, at least 24 hours, preferably 2 days anyway, because Mark needs time to go in, and he can only go in at certain times of the day to get his bees out, because you got to go early in the morning when the bees are in the hive still, right? So we give them lots of time, lots of notice, and then we go in and spray as needed.
Well, we just got to communicate back and forth what our rotation looks like when we're putting canola there, and absolutely we have to be careful with pesticide control, fungicides, stuff like that. We got to be careful, let them know. We try to limit the pesticide use for sure, obviously, and we just try to spray the herbicides in when the bees are at a low activity, just to try to keep it away from them as much as possible.
Well, what we do if we realize that the insect thresholds are such that we need to take action and spray, we'd be contacting Terry and seeing what concerns he might have, and realizing that although the thresholds might be there where some of the companies would be advising us that it would be profitable to spray, I'm always conscious that there may be damage to some of the beneficial insects out there as well, and I always take that into consideration when we're trying to make that decision of whether or not we're going to spray. And if we do deem that it's necessary to spray, then our first phone call would be into Terry to give him as much warning as possible, that we realize that we might have to spray in case Terry feels that he'd want to move these hives to protect them. In the past, it's been a bit of an education for us as we learn that there's better times of day to spray to preserve the lives of these bees. There's safer chemicals that we can use. So I think there's ways to mitigate some of the risks out there as a producer.
They're looking for honey that basically they know who the grower is, a local honey. We tell them that we have the hives in our place, but it goes back to Kevin's and it's blended with all the other hives, but it is local, and that's what they want. They want to know that it's Canadian or Albertan or Central Alberta for that matter. They want it as local as they can get it, so try and provide that for them.
But in the domestic and North American market, canola honey is widely acceptable and still regarded as a high quality.
So a lot of the buyers are interested in the canola honey because of its color. The lighter the honey, the higher the grade it receives. So there's good demand for canola honey. Canada has such strict rules and regulations on food safety that we can be proud of the product that we produce. And if it's honey from the canola fields or other honey, I think the consumer can be very confident purchasing our product. And in fact, look for the local Canada product because they can be assured that there's real strict food safety.
For a pound of honey, it's about on average about 2 million flower visits. The bees will fly around 50,000 miles to make 1 pound of honey.
If I could pick one thing to tell Canadian consumers about beekeeping in Canada, it would be that I think the beekeepers are very cognizant that they're producing a food product, something that's going to be on your table. And they, by and large, most beekeepers try very hard to produce a high quality honey product in Canada. And so I would encourage consumers to buy Canadian honey and make sure the honey that they're buying is Canadian, to support Canadian beekeeping industry, and also to support beekeepers who are not only producing a honey crop, but also pollinating our food supply.
Canola is a crop that is developed, grown, and processed in Canada. Canola oil is heart healthy, and it is ideally suited to the North American diet. From humble beginnings in the early 1970s, canola now covers nearly 25% of the farmland in Western Canada, and these fields of yellow flowers now extend from coast to coast. The Canola Council of Canada is committed to the sustainable supply of canola for domestic and international consumption. This requires a healthy canola crop to produce the healthy oil. Canola provides habitat for all manner of insects, both beneficial and pestilent. Maintaining balance between these insects can be a challenge, but with good communication and the use of integrated pest management, we will see sustainable canola growers and beekeepers well into the future. For more information about bees and canola, visit the websites of the Canola Council of Canada and the Canadian Honey Council.